Hello, my name's Christopher. I'm something of a movie fanatic.
Hi, my name is Patrick, and I have a very short attention span.
In Must Watch Movies, a new podcast from the Zero Science Podcast Network, I'm going to try to put some culture into Patrick's trash brain.
In each installment, Christopher will choose a critically acclaimed film for me and my guest to watch for the very first time.
I'll open up each episode with why I selected the film in question and what I hope Patrick and his guests will get out of it.
Meanwhile, my guest and I will attempt to give an objective take on a film that's been revered by many for years and years. So grab some popcorn and snuggle up on the couch while you listen to a Philistine stumble his way through some of the greatest works put to celluloid.
Coming in May, be sure to check out Must Watch Movies on the Zero Science Podcast Network, or wherever you download podcasts.
Ugh, damn it, I burned the popcorn.
Fantastic. And I still don't have an intro for this.
That's okay.
I haven't had an intro for the past several episodes. Why should I start now?
Fuck it.
Yeah, okay, that's as good as any. Welcome to Jukebox Zeros. I'm Lels.
And I'm Patrick.
Welcome to
I'm
Jukebox
Kat.
Zeros. That's
Sorry.
Kat.
She's
Kat's
back.
here, and she's clearly raring and ready to go. Kat Verlicco is here.
Yes,
Didn't even give me a chance to say the tagline. Now, how is anyone going to know that Jukebox Zeros is the place to go for your idols to die?
Oh, I think they'll see over the course of the episode.
Thanks for
I'm
coming
dying.
back, Kat.
Yeah,
No,
seriously.
thank you for having me. I enjoy this so much.
Should we get into it with the apology section real quick?
Apology section, yes.
Yep, we always have a section where we apologize for things because we're incredibly neurotic. It's the apology section.
I'm sorry.
Have you guys got anything to... Pat, you got anything to apologize for this week?
I'm sorry. Just sorry, man. I'm just sorry.
That's fair.
Isn't that good enough? Is that just good enough?
At the general state of things?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Is that not good enough? Is sorry not good enough anymore? What is going to be good enough for you?
Fair enough. So this is going to sound weird, but I might very well have something that Kat needs to apologize for. On the last episode she appeared, the Red Hot Chili Peppers episode, I have a clip from how we closed that episode out. Let me just play it real quick.
Oh, God.
And that about does it for this episode of Jukebox Zeros. I'm Lils.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Kat.
And remember, that ending part is strictly reserved for hosts.
I'm so sorry.
And now you've thrown the whole thing of our podcast into disarray because according to our very strict rules and guidelines, that technically makes you a host of the program too.
Whoa,
I don't know how to deal with that.
No, I don't sit on that throne.
I mean,
We could have a ceremony.
we could. I'm just very confused because we've never run into this situation before, but we've somehow come up with it very clearly set in stone on the stone granite tablet that we keep all our fucking Jukebox Zeros rules in. That totally exists.
I remember editing that episode.
Feel bad
And I
for
remember-
stepping on those toes.
Oh, please don't.
I don't know where this bit is going.
We kid because we love. We kid
The
because we
throne shall be mine. I
this
shall
funny
be
at
the
all? I don't know
only
if this even
Jukebox
counted as a
Zero
joke.
left. No, here I am. I'm clearly trying to take over.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is your hostile takeover?
Yes, it is. It is. It's a hostile takeover, and yeah, I'm here to sit on that.
It doesn't feel that hostile.
Oh, boy.
It doesn't feel that hostile.
Directed by Eli Roth.
Hostile.
I'm scared to continue this bit now because it's clearly not funny at all.
I'm sure it will be.
We don't always
Oh,
have
boy.
to make jokes. We don't always have to be joking around. We can we can say sentences that just flat out don't make any sense and don't go anywhere. That's our duty.
Okay.
I am a banana.
Oh, boy. I'm sorry for bringing that up. You don't have to be the third host if you don't want to, Kat.
Well, no, I'm happy to be today.
Well, sure, of course, today.
Everyone's an honorary Juki.
Or a Juki Lou, as Scott Kurland calls us.
Juki Lewis?
Juki.
Is that what
you know
just
what? I like
said?
Juki Lewis better.
Old Juki Lewis. Always, he's big on the jukebox repairman scene. They had a
Gonna head on
conference.
down to the downtown and get a pint at old Juki Lewis.
My favorite pup.
What have they got on that old machine? I suppose they got discs of music.
What's in the tap today, Juki? Dank. Oh,
I miss the days before music.
We got some stale Bud Light.
and if you ask me to make a cocktail, I look very angry.
We only make Brandy Alexander's. Because that's an old drink.
Ooh,
So we make.
what is that? I'm gonna look it up.
I don't even know. But it has brandy in it.
One of the things I like about doing this remote is I actually get to sit at my desktop computer and I feel like a cool guy at my battle station, and I get to, let me open up my internet. Even though I can do
It
it on
feels
my phone,
like-
it just looks cooler when I do it.
Real talk, though, behind you, Pat, it looks like it's Strong Sad's spacesuit behind you.
Oh my god!
I'm not kidding. Lils, you know what I'm saying. That's
Oh,
yeah.
Sad's
You-
spacesuit.
like, the listeners can't see it, but Pat has, like, one of those Zoom backgrounds up, except we're doing Skype.
Yeah.
And it looks like Dexter's Laboratory back there.
It does, except that's definitely Strong Sad's.
It is. I can see it.
Yeah.
Gotta get on the Wood Davers train.
It's taken off into the new millennium.
A brandy Alexander is a brandy-based cocktail consisting of cognac, creme de cacao, and
Yep.
cream that became popular during the early 20th century. It's a
It's an
variation
old
of
one.
Yeah, it's a variation on an earlier beverage that was gin-based. It's called simply an Alexander.
That's what we do with our finale episodes. We talk about Boston beers and Strong Sad instead of the album we're supposed to be talking about.
Wait a minute, this is an important question. What would the Strong Sad cocktail consist of?
Ooh,
I'd guess absinthe. Like just straight absinthe.
That's kind of cool. You know, you
what are like?
a little sugar cube.
Strong Sad seems like a straight absinthe guy.
I don't know, what did like college kids circa like late 80s, early 90s who were like super into like college indie rock, like what did they drink? Because that would be
Bud
so
Light.
sad.
Good question.
Bud Light?
What did you guys drink?
Was like
What was featured in Animal House? You know, that was like the same era, but worse.
A lot of beer.
That's like the worst part of it.
I have no idea.
Yeah, me neither.
What are we doing? Did we do all our segments yet? Yeah, we only have.
We
Yes,
did them all.
We're not at the Smell Cave anymore, so we can't do Chicago, Whitney Houston, or Celine Dion anymore.
Whitney,
Garth Brooks.
my girl.
I would have to imagine they're probably playing a Chicago song. That place played a shit ton of Chicago.
I would have to imagine at this point, unless they have a new property manager who has like a wildly different taste. They're like left a note on the like bulletin board at the front. The reign of terror is over. We're changing the
Addendum:
music.
from here on out, you will now be playing Chicago, Whitney Houston, Gino Vanelli.
So much better.
Should we get into this album or what?
Let's dive in.
All right, let's get started. In a time when sales for music, both major and independent, continues to wax and wane in various phases and stages, one of the few genres to remain a consistent commercial success is that of country pop music, which had always maintained a pretty strong following but didn't become the powerhouse of sales that it continues to be until around the 90s. Much of that success can be owed to Oklahoma's Troyal Garth Brooks, or just Garth Brooks, his stage name, who remains to this day one of the most successful solo artists of all time, not just as a country artist. Arriving on the scene in 1985 and breaking through at the start of the 90s, Garth Brooks stands as the only artist in U.S. history to have released 8 albums that reached diamond sales status, which denotes sales in 10 million or higher, surpassing the Beatles' former record of 6. He also is the highest-selling solo albums artist in the United States, ahead of Elvis Presley but just behind the Beatles. Brooks' distinct blend of country music, which incorporated elements of pop rock, was unheard of at the time, but has now become something of a modern standard for the genre across a wide swath of singles, the majority of which would dominate the U.S. country charts. So you can imagine how confused everyone was when Brooks, a figure of pop culture firmly established in the realm of country music, out of nowhere seemed to abandon this success and began making appearances as a fictional alt-rock musician from Australia by the name of Chris Gaines. This was part of a complex marketing campaign attached to a film intended to feature Brooks as Gaines. The film in question, The Lamb, was never released, but a companion album titled Greatest Hits, or The Life and Times of Chris Gaines, was, to a generally confused and baffled public, who didn't understand why Brooks had abruptly shifted sounds without warning, or why he adopted this persona. It remains to this day one of the weirder chapters in Brooks' career, and a very strange footnote in modern rock history. And we're going to dig into it. Who's ready to dig into Chris Gaines' greatest hits / The Life and Times of Chris Gaines?
His
so
first
ready.
name is Troyal? Troyal Garth Brooks.
Right?
It's like an Irish name, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making fun of it. It's kind of, it's
You
kind of
have
unusual.
something there.
A little spicy.
His mother is from Ireland, right?
I think so. I didn't
don't
dig
know.
that deeply.
So I kind of dug deeply, and it's either that his mother is 100% from Ireland, or her parents are from Ireland. So
Yeah.
his connection, there are a couple of connections. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to spoil anything, because I've got some things to say about it later. But his mother is either first generation or off the boat. And it relates to how he puts things into perspective later in this album.
Yes, his mother was Colleen McElroy Carroll, a 1950s era country singer of Irish ancestry. Yeah, interesting.
So he's got country singing in his blood, basically.
Yeah,
I would say.
agreed.
So do either of you guys have any prior experience with Garth Brooks, the artist, up to listening to this album? Because I will be perfectly honest, this is the first bit of Garth Brooks music I've ever heard.
Same, girl. Same.
Not me. I know a couple of his. I mean, you know a couple of his singles too, right? Like "Friends in Low Places" and
The
"Thunder
Dance.
Rolls." Yeah, I mean they're not huge presences in my mind, but I do kind of remember them, and I don't remember if my mom was into Garth Brooks or if it was Brooks and Dunn, who I learned later were two completely different Brookses. But other than that, I'm pretty unfamiliar with country music in general. I listen to some of the outlier stuff, but nothing. I haven't really dug deep into any of Garth Brooks's celebrated works or anything. No.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the thing that's so funny about Garth Brooks, is that he's such a huge sort of part of 90s pop culture, and he's never, apart from this album, weirdly enough, he's never had, a big Billboard charting single or anything like that. It's always been on the back of the success of his country singles.
And I
Right.
actually give him credit along with a lot of other country artists. They spent so much time of the 90s that us rockers didn't even think about. Just grinding it out and touring non-stop. So what I have to say is, I give him credit and, people like Shania Twain a ton of credit, because while we were just, sitting there listening to, the last bits of rock and roll coming out, they were working their asses off, touring every single stage in our country, and us rockers probably didn't even know that.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, they kind of carried the torch of stadium, the sort of, playing these huge stadiums, and even a lot of like contemporary pop is pretty synthesizer based, I guess, and country music is still like using a lot of live instrumentation and like making,
analog
big business
instruments.
analog instruments, and making big business for like session musicians. Like you can pretty much only get work in country music these days.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Is they did create a lot of jobs for musicians.
Yeah, because it wasn't, in other fields, it kind of became less necessary. You could do, pop music is kind of more, or there's a lot less heads in it. You can make a whole big pop album with just one person. We've seen that. But country music, you need the whole band. You need someone who actually knows how to fucking play that lap pedal steel, because only like 8 people do.
So credit where credit is due, clearly.
Sure, I'll throw it towards him. Why not? I'll throw rope around that buckaroo.
All right. Should we get into the album then?
I suppose. I have my notes.
All right.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Here's our first track. Track number 1, titled That's the Way I Remember It.
That's the way I remember it. I remember it that way. From the day I was living there, I remember it.
Okay, so to reiterate, a major sticking point that turned Garth Brooks fans away from the Chris Gaines character was that they couldn't make sense of the famed country music singer performing rock music. Thus, we open with this song, still a country song. Like, what is your baseline, Garth Brooks fans, in 1999?
It does have that country shuffle. I guess I would need to listen to what he was doing on his, because he just put out an album like 2 years before that was like very blatantly country.
Was that the roping one?
No, it was, he's released a ton of albums. It's like, he was doing like one per year, which was like unheard of in the 90s. Sevens was the name of it. Oh yeah, look at that sexy buckaroo. So I don't know. I guess I don't have a lot of context. It sounds very country to us.
I mean, was that the thing? Like they were just so used to just blatantly country that maybe dialing it back a bit was just too much? I don't know.
I think what it is this sounds like a bit like what country music is now, which is like you have the instrumentation, but like it's not necessarily, they're not necessarily doing those sort of like country leading chords progressions thing. They're kind of more based on pop. They just sound like they kind of in general have more of a pop rock tone to them anyway. So it's, this almost sounds like it could be a more modern country track, I guess. Sure.
So for me, what I wrote down was like, I was struggling to find words with this one, and so some major words that came to me were unseasoned, and then also processed.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why.
I would agree with all of those.
Cool. That's like how, we are all categorized to like our chicken, but I don't like unseasoned bland chicken. But to go a little bit further, I'd say that I would almost say that this song is tailor-made for the top 40. However, this song is not at all tailor-made. It's in fact produced on an assembly line. Am I wrong?
No, I totally agree with you there. Like, this is kind of a very definition of like generic pop rock. Or if you want to be even deeper in the paint, you might call it adult alternative.
Thank you.
It's a very adult alternative, and
or like if you're a New Englander, you might call them the river songs.
yes.
OMG, the river, yes.
Like,
So-
just imagine any tame pop with vague leanings towards rock that's still safe for, like, 45-year-old Whole Food shoppers, and you'll get there.
OMG.
Like that kind of Sean Mullins or Howie Day sounding kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, David Gray.
Yeah, you're hitting so many points that I'm excited to explore later, but I didn't want to give it all away. So yes, I wholeheartedly agree. This is that watered down kind of top 40 made song.
Yeah. It immediately conjured images of my first job at Victory Supermarket, where I was probably 15 years old. I was
Oh, wow.
in 2000, and yeah, just like that was the type of music you would hear. Your Tal Bachmans and your
Oh, man.
Sean Mullins and your fucking...
I never thought I would hear the name
OMG.
Tal Bachman ever again.
Oh, no.
Later on, I didn't want to give it all away, but later on I might go ahead and say that I'm getting flashbacks to my first job at Hannaford Supermarkets, but that's what I have written down, and I knew, Patrick, that you would relate as as somebody from the South Shore who had a background in, like, groceries.
In retail, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't want to give it away yet. However, yes.
We could explore that on the song that you do, because I have similar
I'm sure we'll be
feelings all over
exploring
this
that
album.
across many, many songs on this record.
I mean, it's just sort of a soup we got going on here, an adult alternative soup. So it's
and also the diversity in the songwriting is very narrow. So if we can review one song one way, it may very well apply perfectly to another song, because
Indeed.
there really isn't much, diversity here.
Yeah,
So
this is pretty much exactly what I was talking about when in our group chat I said I was having trouble writing notes for a lot of these songs.
So what I was kind of surprised to see was Brooks has no writing credit on this album.
Oh,
Does he
and
not, right?
yes.
He has no writing credits on any of the songs on this album.
Right.
I think he's only ever written like maybe a couple of his own songs, but he's mostly relied on like Nashville songwriters.
Oh, so here we go. So looking at his Sevens album, I see there are songwriters, but or it's him, Garth Brooks, and someone else. His album,
And like those
Is it-
Nashville songwriters, like this is a point that I'll get when we get to a later track, but I have some stuff to say about that specifically. But like regarding this song, I mean, it's certainly catchy, yes, but for like only the 4 minutes and 30 seconds that it occupies. And like once that's over, it's just another shuffling, breezy acoustic guitar song and about a billion other like Jason Mraz songs, and there's not a whole lot else to it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's pleasant. It was listenable. I was surprised to hear him singing that way, but I guess he's singing more in he's supposed to be doing a kind of quasi-soul R&B type voice rather than his normal country twang. So
yeah, that's another credit where credit is due thing that I'll say is that, like up to this point, as I understand it, he's always been singing in like a low baritone kind of voice, and he actually put the effort in to try to like develop, a tenor and a falsetto and all
his
that kind of stuff.
His singing is pretty solid all over the record. I will give it that. My problem is just that late 90s to like early 2000s tendency to put the vocal like right up front. So it is a little distracting in that way. I wish it was mixed a little further back, but yeah, I mean he's doing fine. Sang,
It's
sang, boy.
basically just okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's acceptable.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, ideally at this point, I might have liked to have played, like, some of Brooks' mainline material to contrast the difference between his songs and the Chris Gaines songs, but they're nowhere to be found because Brooks doesn't host any of his music on streaming sites.
Yes, okay,
Chris Gaines
so
included.
I was wondering if when we were going to talk about it, and I didn't want to give that all away. However, we need to keep in mind that he signed an exclusive deal with Walmart. Imagine just like signing a deal with Walmart and how much of a sellout you would have to be to do that. However, he did exclusively sign with Walmart of all places, and so it is hard to find any of his material on streaming services.
Well, I mean, country music is probably one of the last genres of music out there that could probably still net a good amount of physical CD sales. So that probably made a lot more sense to him than just putting it on Spotify or any of that sort of stuff, at least for a while.
Yeah.
Well, when they Walmart is doing their new streaming service called Garth Brooksify, and it's just all Garth Brooks.
But yeah, in order for this episode even to happen, we had to borrow a physical copy from our good friend Christopher G. Brown, frequent guest. We paid him handsomely in horse sandwiches. As of 2020, though, the only online service where you can find his music is Amazon Unlimited, who he signed a deal with in 2019. And that's like YouTube, Spotify, none of that.
Wait, we signed a deal with Amazon?
As I understand it, yeah.
You and I did?
No, we didn't sign a deal with Amazon.
Oh.
That's what I was trying to find out. Did you, like Ilse Martin and Patrick S. Barry, did we personally sign a contract with Amazon?
Well, wouldn't you know?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because, I mean, a lot of stuff flies over my head.
Hang on, I got one more thing to say about like streaming services, because I actually found out in my research, and this is kind of hilarious, that in an effort to secure royalties for his own music, he briefly started his own digital music platform in 2014 called Ghost Tunes, which closed down in 2017 and was absorbed into Amazon Music.
Well then.
Which I had no idea that was a thing that happened, but okay.
Fuck me. That's great.
We didn't know that.
I didn't know. This is all news to me.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that we signed that deal with Jeff Bezos either. So, like, when do we get
We did not sign a deal with Jeff Bezos. Stop saying that.
Wait, I thought I was getting mad money for this podcast. Are you telling me we're not getting $30,000?
Listen, let me get on the phone.
Pay my rent for the next 8 years.
Let me get back on the phone with them. I got to renegotiate our why don't we just move on to the next song?
Yeah, let's do that. Here's track number 2. This one is titled Lost in You.
Heaven knows I'm head over heels and it shows. I played every field, I suppose, but there's something about you when you're around, baby.
This track is Garth Brooks' only Billboard Hot 100 hit. Yes. It reached number 5 on the Hot 100 chart, and I assume it disappeared just as quickly as it came.
Okay, so for what it's worth, and I kind of dug deep into it, this hired team of songwriters are the same group of dudes who produced, and I don't know if you probably all looked it up online anyway, but they're the same ones who wrote If I Could Change the World by Eric Clapton.
Oh, yeah. It's the same
I actually
damn
did not
song.
look that up, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, so I have a feeling that they were trying to just recycle that hit into another hit, because if you listen to it formatically, like it's the same song, just recycle.
I could see that.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to If I Could Change the World by Eric Clapton, it pretty much is the same song.
It's very, yeah.
Yeah, it has almost the exact same vibes to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that right away, and I did that, notice that little bit of trivia as well. It's the same people that do that song. Yeah, it has that same, like, Eric Clapton unplugged, but we're going to try to make a hit single out of it. We're still milking the fucking unplugged record, like, 5 years later. So, yeah, it very much sounds like that track.
Yeah.
I mean,
that song won fucking Song of the Year in 1996. That's fucking stupid.
So in 96, I was 8 years old, and I was into it because my dad liked Eric Clapton.
It's a nice song. But fuck Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Eric Clapton connection is very obvious. I have in my notes that it kind of reminds me of K.D. Lang a little bit. Except
I
not as
love I love Katie Lang. Are you?
Because, like, the thing that separates it is that Katie Lang knew a thing or two about putting, like, some real theatricality up, like, behind a really torchy song like this. But this song doesn't really build like that. It just kind of stays perpetually at that sort of whisper sort of mood.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have, like, that, those amazing moments that maybe Katie could.
Yeah, I love Katie Lang.
Same. Oh, love. I think that's a really cool comparison, and that's a really positive comparison. I would have just, like, shit on this whole track.
Well, when I say that, I'm talking explicitly about the arrangements, because the vocals just sound like, the stuff we already said, more Sean Mullins and all that rest.
Yeah. This is one of those that's definitely what I would call a ripoff. I'm kind of blunt.
I want to know, okay, so this was going to be a soundtrack to a movie called The Lamb, which would star Brooks as a rock star, recalling the different periods of his life. I want to know, like, what... I was hoping to hear, like, more kind of period pieces happening, and, like, already, like, 2 songs in, I'm just, like, firmly planted in 1999, like, September of 1999 in particular. I don't really know how to explain that, but I feel like I'm in that time period. So I'm kind of disappointed. I was hoping, like...
Yeah, I'll have some more stuff to say about that further down the line, too.
Yeah, like, I was hoping there'd be, like, I don't know, one, like, metal song or something, and there'd be, like, a ska song, and, I don't know, like, dark wave song.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of giving away my critiques, like, from the beginning right here, but I will say that after a while, I kind of stopped being able to criticize the music because it all started sounding so similar, and all my critiques started going towards the concept.
Okay. No, that is fair.
I'll expound upon that a little bit later. For now, though, I've got like a quick 2-question pop quiz that might blow your mind, but you probably already know this if you look this up. Up to this point, all of Garth Brooks' albums have been produced by Alan Reynolds, who is a very revered producer in country circles. For this album, Brooks went to a different producer for Chris Gaines' greatest hits. Do you know who that was?
Well, I think I might. Does Patrick know?
I know who it is. I'm not really familiar enough with their work.
Are we talking about Don?
Other than Walk the Dinosaur?
Don Was.
Don Was Not Was.
Don What Up Dog was. Don
What Up?
Walk the Dinosaur was. Don Dad I'm in Jail was.
Dad, I'm in jail.
Oh, these all sound like great songs. I don't know any of these songs. I'm very, very unfamiliar with his work.
I mean, it probably explains why this quote-unquote rock album sounds so much more like an adult contempo album, because that was a little bit in Don Was's production wheelhouse. Like, Was Not Was went to some really crazy, like, experimental progressive, kind of jazz-funky parts, but for some reason after that, Don Was just produced, like, a whole lot of yacht stuff.
Yeah, looking at his what he was doing around the same time as this record, he did Avenue B, which was the 12th studio album by Iggy Pop. I don't know anything about that. Then we got Bare Naked Ladies, Maroon. I don't know any of these songs. All right, this is stupid.
No, that's cool. I love Iggy Pop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that 1999 was his best period.
No.
But, I mean, maybe it was good.
Yeah.
Got 1.5 stars. That looks like a candidate for our fucking show.
So if that trivia nugget didn't shake you to your core, this next one probably will, or at least it will for Pat, for sure. Someone we've prominently featured in the earliest Jukebox Zeros episode directed the music video for this song. Can you guess who it is?
Uh-oh. I don't think I can.
Neil Young.
I have that written down.
No, it wasn't Neil Young.
Was it fucking Uncle Al?
No, you're thinking too large.
Al Yankovic? I love Al Yankovic.
So is it a smaller person?
You're very, very, very close without realizing it.
How tiny?
I'm just going to go out and say it. John Small of Attila.
Oh.
Jesus fucking Christ. No, that really is him. I thought I saw that, and I was... my goodness. It's really him. It's really him. This is too much. I can't handle
I
this.
think he might have directed the VH1 special too, which is probably how he got Billy Joel.
OMG. I cannot wait to talk about that.
All right, for now, shall we move on to the third track?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Here we got track number 3, this one titled Snow in July. Yeah, partial credit, I suppose, for like bothering to turn the volume up on this one beyond the babyface acoustic weepy ballads.
It's a partial slap. It partially slaps, absolutely.
Partially slaps is a great phrase.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It partially slaps.
Like it kind of reminds me of a funkier Dan Fogelberg track, which I like Dan.
I would not have made that connection.
That's great
because it is like still him, but Fogelberg does a lot of like high register stuff, so it has similar vibes, like a spicier. Like he always has like one or two tracks that are a little bit spicier, and yeah, this reminds me of it for sure.
It is spicier. For me, this is actually the first one out of 2 on the album that really gave me flashbacks to working at a Hannaford supermarket.
Yeah.
And subconsciously, it was a thing where I was like, wait, did I hear this in a dream? No, I heard this in the frozen section. Fucking dairy, right? Like...
I was stacking Stonyfield yogurts.
Real talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of tossed one on the ground. Oh, accidentally broke it because I got to eat it.
OMG.
Yeah. Another like.
That's how I fed myself for years.
It's another like credit where credit is due kind of thing. Where like, I mean, there's some pretty nice session guitar and organ noodling going on. That's definitely worthy of like any Steely Dan record or something like that. And I definitely get those vibes of, like, you know, a suburban white person's, you know, definition of funky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you ask just some mom in a Volvo, just like, what's your favorite funk band? I like Tedeschi Trucks Band. Okay.
Right.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, there's some great session work happening, and I'm trying to see who our pedigree is on this song. Mike Moore, and in addition to Kennedy and Kirkpatrick, we got Mike Moore and Andrew Logan. And Andrew Logan was a tour director for Fall Out Boy. Oh, so he did some
really?
he did some tour directing in the later years for like Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco.
Kennedy and Kirkpatrick, I believe, are like pretty well-established Nashville songwriters, which probably explains some of the weird-ass lyrical decisions that gets made in this song, because country music has always had, you know, that history of just doing some really tortured and unhinged shit with metaphor.
Yeah, okay, so like Prince would write about sometimes it snows in April, and in Minneapolis, it could. However, snow in July in Nashville is simply impossible.
Oh, yeah.
Goodness, no. I went there in August, and it was fucking hot.
That's how you end up with lines like, now I should have brought my sweater, for a chill is in the air, there's a sudden change of weather, for which I am not prepared.
Is that in this song?
Cool. You've never seen snow in your life, Kennedy and Kirkpatrick.
Never.
I feel like we should talk about the actual concept of the album a little bit first. Like, we should finally get into that. Speaking of Chris Gaines' image. Back in 1999, Brooks' production company, Red Strokes Entertainment, was collaborating with Paramount Pictures to produce a film for him to star in. As we mentioned, that film was called The Lamb. It was going to feature Gaines as the main character, an aged rock star from Australia who'd been around since the 80s. And there's obviously not a lot of information on it, but from what I can understand, it was supposed to be like a musical version of Forrest Gump, in that it would follow Gaines through the entirety of his career and existence in the evolving musical landscape. Like, imagine Walk Hard, except played straight.
I was gonna say it sounds like a straight walk hard, walk straight hard. Yeah, I remember this. I remember the behind the music for the like kind of fake behind the music that they did for Chris Gaines when it came out, and thinking back, there was like what felt like a lot of promotion leading up to it, and then quickly disappeared like right after. So there was like some promotion. There was like some effort to reach people. I think it just wasn't received very well.
I mean, whatever the case, Brooks had to have seen something in the project because he threw a lot of his own stuff into it. Like he lost a significant amount of weight to get a more wiry appearance. He took to wearing a Trent Reznor-like mop wig, grew a soul patch, and even developed an Australian accent.
Yeah, and what's funny, I that you brought up the losing the significant weight thing. He released a Christmas album like 2 months later, and he's on the cover, and his face is still like very skinny, but he's got the Garth Brooks hat. I think they call it a Garth Brooks hat, or a cowboy hat, as some people call them. Stetson. I call it a Garth Brooks hat.
So if we're going to touch on the behind the music, there are a few things I would love to say, and that's that the storyline has so much to unpack. Okay? Like, there were so many events in quote-unquote Chris Gaines' life. Like, you started out with the best friend dying. And then you had, like, sex addiction. You had his father died or something, and that was complicated. Like, it was one thing after another, and I gotta be honest, I watched that VH1 behind the music if we're going there, and holy moly, I was exhausted by the end of it.
Well, it was definitely written, that's for sure. Yeah, I remember seeing the ones for, like, Def Leppard, and that one was, like, definitely one thing after another, but, like, that band actually really was stricken with a lot of
it
bad
went
luck,
through it,
like,
yeah.
one after another.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that being a thing I missed it, unfortunately. But
what I had to LOL the most at was, like, I think it was, like, one of Chris Gaines' albums was supposedly called Fornicopia. Can I tell you how much I cried laughing just hearing the name Fornicopia? Like...
Oh, boy.
You say Hornicopia with an H?
Yeah, it's cornucopia with an F.
Oh, fornicopia with an
Fornication and cornucopia just mixed into one.
This guy just thought of album names like, I don't know, he like woke up from a dream and was just like, oh, that's a good album name. I'm going to write that.
Fornicopia.
For my project.
Well, that's the thing about that VH1 special. Like, so much of it is just so obviously fictional. And, like, I mean, that was probably... if that wasn't the point, then they did not try nearly hard enough, because nearly every time they brought a point up, I just had to just keep saying to the screen, no, it didn't. He lost his friend, who was, at the age of 18, had a pilot's license. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. Oh, and
how do you know you weren't there?
He suffered all these tragedies, and yet every single album of his debuted at number 1. No, it didn't.
No, it didn't. Right.
You guys weren't there.
His BFF died. I have it written down. His BFF died, and, like, he was addicted to sex. It was just, like, one thing after another. And, like, sure, everybody's life has tumultuous times and everything, but the whole story exhausted.
Yeah, I can imagine that it was doing a lot of that.
Well, I think part of that is that, I mean, this is probably across the board for a lot of VH1 behind the music stuff, that it focused so much on, like, minutia a lot more than, like, fictional sort of stuff. I mean, obviously it touches upon, like, his house burned down and, you know, he got into a car accident. But then there's all this stuff about battles over royalties and things like that. And that's not interesting to a fictional character.
True.
Like, at least when it happens to Def Leppard, then it becomes a documentary. But this is so very clearly not a documentary.
Right.
Yeah. It's like...
and it just becomes tedious.
Like, I wonder how much Billy Joel was paid to be in this mockumentary.
Oh, Billy Joel and Don Was are in it, and they are really good sports.
Yeah.
And then in 1991, it was revealed that Chris Gain had in fact been underpaying on his taxes for years as a result of bad management. So they had
Please
to go
tell
to
me that's true.
But, like, the end game of all this marketing buzz was to introduce and just sort of more like soften the blow of introducing the world to the character and getting people accustomed to Brooks performing rock music in time for the movie's production and release. A campaign of which this album was a part of, which was released as a prelude to the film. The Lamb never came to fruition, however, because of financial issues, I think, which means Brooks had basically spent all this work developing a lot of buzz and confusion for nothing, and all he pretty much had to show for it was just a lot of befuddled and confused fans that were just wondering why he'd been acting so weird.
What happened to the fiddles? Where's the countries?
Do we want to talk about the next track, or do we want to go on to the SNL?
Oh, boy. Do you want to get into the next track? Because I'm sure we'll end up getting to the SNL pretty soon.
Oh, yeah, we can move on.
All right, here's track number 4, this one titled Driftin' Away, with an apostrophe. Not drifting, driftin'.
And I'm not quite sure that you can trust me, and I would hate to have you find me again. Baby, like the wind drifting away. It blows and nobody knows.
This was supposed to be a fictional rock musician, right?
Right? What
Where's
is
the rock?
this? This is...
I realize we're only 4 tracks in out of 13, so there's still a way to go, but what do we have here? Just a very plain piece of straight pop with the vaguest sort of country western leanings that kind of leans a little bit into boy band pop.
It absolutely does.
So I'm a Nickelodeon kid, right? And so I distinctly remember Grandpa from the Rugrats going to the grocery store with the Rugrats, picking out a cereal called Corrugated Bran Puffs. This song is the Corrugated Bran Puffs of the album. It's filler material.
Oh,
Come
boy.
on, get some corrugated bread pops. They're good.
Corrugated
Or was it the other
Bran Puffs.
grandpa?
Yep.
Hey, corrugated bread pops. I do both grandpas.
It's weird because this song is very clearly trying to be like a love song, but it's just also way too cloying and clingy to be like taken seriously. But it's also got vague vibes towards being like a sexy time jam, but it's far too pristine and passionless for that. It's even like weirdly stealthily Christian pop as well, which is probably the fault of Tommy Sims, one of the other songwriters on it, who is a Christian songwriter.
Yes, he was in the Christian rock band Whiteheart.
Yeah, but it all just
Which,
comes together into
I
just
don't know what that
tasteless
means.
fluff for the most part.
Yeah, this was the first track where I was like starting to lose interest because there's enough kind of things in the first 3 tracks to keep me interested, but this one, yeah, it was right off the bat just I found to be really bland.
Yeah.
I mean, since it has such like R&B pop proclivities without realizing it, part of me wonders if maybe this would have been a more interesting song if you did kind of force it down the sexy time jam route by passing it off to like some 90s sexy time artist like, I don't know, like Keith Sweat or Casey and JoJo or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't promise it would have been better, but it would have at least have been more interesting, and Tommy Sims probably would have hated it.
Fair.
He hates a lot of things, you know.
Casey and
Yeah.
JoJo
He
would have
hates
been way
Satan.
better with this.
He hates premarital sex, and
He hates women's rights, presumably.
Yep. Oh boy. Yeah.
He hates
anyway.
rainbows.
Yes. He hates rainbows.
Ever since us gays stole it from him.
Yep. He doesn't like anyone. I don't know where I'm going.
Full
with
stop. He doesn't like anyone.
A lot of this whole album is everything I hate about modern music industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's although we're about 20 years away from where we are now, but yeah, This song
I mean, I
sucks.
guess if you think about it, that kind of makes it ahead of its time, except terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, prescient in the worst kind of way.
And it's interesting because, like, I read a lot of retrospectives on this album from sources that were really trying to go out of their way to be like, it wasn't all bad, making comparisons to, like, you know, when Beyonce would call herself Sasha Fierce or when Nicki Minaj would pull out the Roman character or anything like that. And it's like, you're being very, very generous saying that that was ahead of its time with, like, this thing.
I don't know that. I don't think Beyonce was listening to this album for inspiration for Sasha Fierce. Gonna just take a wild
Well, it was
stab
more
in the
like
dark
just
there.
the mere fact of the alter ego thing. And that was happening well before Chris Gaines and
Yeah.
probably to much less embarrassing effect.
Okay, so my early notes before I really got into the nuances of this album was, LOL, is this your Ziggy Stardust? Because Chris Gaines is Garth Brooks' Ziggy Stardust. That's sad, dude. Like, that's fucking sad.
It's fucking like PAX TV Ziggy Stardust,
Yeah.
Wow.
if you remember that reference.
PAX?
No? Okay.
Oh, no, I remember PAX. Or like USA in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Let's move on to track number 5, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, track number 5. This one is titled Way of the Girl.
You changed the world for her graces, but she keeps changing her mind. It's just the way of the girl, just the way of the girl.
I just like it. I think it's funky when I'm going to buy eggplants.
Yes,
I like this one, too.
you
That
do.
was funky.
But it's totally grocery store rock.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, my
It's
inner
music to
Karen
it's music
was
to
very
buy
excited.
jars of water with asparagus in it too.
Yeah. But, like, as
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't like this and likes good music, I would rather shop groceries for even the Misfits.
Bert, that's there.
I hope not the Jerry Only album. That's not
No! I got something to say. I'll buy this lettuce today. Doesn't matter much to me as long as it's organic.
20 pies are on sale.
See?
That's Danzig era Misfits, so that's cool.
We
though.
go where apples dare.
See? you get it.
Buy candy bars at the counter said, buy candy bars.
Cucumbers from
That
Mars,
would be
yeah.
much more enjoyable than this.
So this, I assume, is the part of the album where Don Was basically went to Brooks and just like, this is supposed to be a rock album. You better turn the distortion up a little bit.
Yeah, better put some
put it
funky,
on
clean
two.
guitar on top.
He put that distortion pedal on 2.
Yeah. It was at a 0, and he said, yeah, at the very least, put it at a 0.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 1999. We need a good hard rock song. Let's throw some clavinet on it.
Although, like, I don't know if you guys ever used, like, one of those beginner Line 6 amps on a guitar. I had
The
one. when I was
spider!
trying to-
The spider!
I had one when I was trying to learn for a while, and it had one of those drive knobs where it was just, like, completely clean, and then you move it, like, a centimeter, and it just turns into a noise album.
Every fucking guitar player I had from, like, high school had that Line 6 Spider amp for $100, and it was like 100 watts, and they all got it at Guitar Center, and I just hated it all.
Yeah, the effects were gruesome. And I think the head. So
Do you,
yeah,
do you want it on blues or insane?
Oh yeah, crazy, insane.
Holy moly. Oh. I just,
That was
like,
my,
I can hear Slipknot
awesome
now in the back of my head and want to kill myself.
You get what I
yeah.
mean, though. Like, just that drive knob where it's just like, okay, this is a clean tone. Blah. I want to put some fuzz on. Let me just move it just a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's like the fan control in a Toyota or something, where you have it on 2 and then 3 is like, and 4 is like 20 times heavier than that.
Takes
That's
you from
right,
light
Toyota
breeze
calling
to
you out.
typhoon.
Oh, calling out Toyota just like line 6.
Yeah. We make a lot of enemies on this show.
I mean, we invite them to come on the podcast to, state their case and review Love Beach, but they never take us up on it.
But dying to know
If
Toyota's
a representative
Yes.
comes in from line 6, I will want to be on that podcast.
I would
That would
love
be
to know
incredible.
Toyota and Line 6's opinion on Emerson, Lake, and Palmer. So, getting back to this song, it's okay, but only kind of half okay, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's another foray for Brooks into, white dude funk that's slightly more listenable than Snow in July was, and drifting into, kind of a Life is a Highway country rock song in a bit.
Yes.
But, the chorus, I feel like just completely just screws around with the mood for me, because it just keeps going from, that sort of loud to quiet dynamic that was very popular in the late 90s that really doesn't always work, I feel like.
Yeah, I could see
And it feels
that.
like just two songs smushed together as opposed to one cohesive thing.
That's fair. Definitely.
Also, you can disagree with me on this if you like, but I am deeply bugged by the Andy Gill-ass production on the guitar. It's so stabby and trebly. I didn't like it.
I have so many problems, but yes, the guitar, you're absolutely right with the, yeah. Yes.
It stuck out.
The guy from Gang of Four, right?
Mixing and mastering.
Yeah, that's Andy Gill. Should we move on to track number 6, or do we have anything else to say about The Way of the Girl?
I'm so excited for number 6.
Yeah,
Really?
let's dive in. I want to hear Kat's take.
Here's track number 6. This one is called Unsigned Letter.
Is she gonna start the match? That'll surely light the flame. Is she carrying a torch for love and pain? Is she gonna break the locks? Take a look inside the box, knowing that you could be least spend or ashamed.
This one, surprisingly decent. Especially considering what a loose definition this album has had of world-weary rock records up to this point.
Alright, can I sing it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sure, go for it.
Come on, try a little. Nothing is forever. Be something better than in the middle.
Oh my
It
God.
is one headlight changed my mind.
Oh, boy.
Oh goodness.
It
oh
is.
my goodness.
No, it is
Wallflowers.
formatic, the whole formula.
I didn't even think of that, but that's wild.
100% one headlight.
That makes a lot of sense considering, how conventional and competent of, a 90s post-grunge balladry this is.
Can we talk about how bad you must feel about yourself ripping off the Wallflowers, though?
Oh, boy. I did not have Wallflowers in my notes. I had, Lifehouse and pre-cancellation Ryan Adams, but you're absolutely spot on with Wallflowers.
Yeah, Lifehouse is a good comparison, but if you actually go through it formatically, the way that they cut out, there's a dramatic pause after a guitar. The guitar flourishes and then pauses.
Yeah.
It says one headlight, but in this case, it's it's a, I forget what he says, but it's another word. But you have that dramatic pause and the flourish of the guitar, and then boom, your line, and then you resume the second, the second verse. It's right on there.
The snare drum has a snap to it that's very similar to the feel of that song too. I'm of the weird opinion that One Headlight has a very distinctive snare to it, and I definitely hear it on this album. That and there's another song later on this album that actually reminds me a ton of the other big Wallflowers song.
You're right.
Heartbreak.
Yep.
Is it weird that I think that this is my favorite track on the album, though?
That's
No.
okay.
No, that's
I
totally
mean-
fine. It's a fine song.
It feels like it's the best one so far that actually adheres to what they're very clearly trying to reach for with this conceit. And I also think it's one of the ones that could probably closest be just translated into Brooks' own sort of wheelhouse of country pop music.
That is a fair assessment. It's like they took One Headlight's formula and then just turned it into Brooks's whatever.
Yeah. As I understand it, though, looking at setlist.fm, Brooks has never performed any songs from Chris Gaines, ever.
I was literally just about to ask that.
What
'cause I was
about SNL?
looking that up.
On SNL.
Which, I mean, you know, if he wants to distance himself from this project, then that's perfectly fine, but, you know, it's not like the songs on here are bad, necessarily. At the same time, though, I can't think of anyone who would be clamoring to hear them, like, in a live setting.
There's actually, Trisha Yearwood prefers this album over any other Garth. So this is her...
Really?
Yep, it's her favorite Garth Brooks album.
Oh, because she helped write a song on it.
Supposedly. But I looked that up on the internet as well, and, like, it may be the case where she actually didn't contribute as much as we all thought.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I actually did find... sorry to interrupt real quick. So I actually did find a quick article here from 2018 that says Garth Brooks revisits his alter... Excuse me. Garth Brooks revisits his alter ego for this brand new performance, and he covers a song that happens later on this album, It Don't Matter to the Sun, where he does like an acoustic performance of it. Oh, man. He looks
there's
like
definitely
my
a
uncle.
few songs on here that probably could just be translated maybe not one-to-one, but close enough to that Garth Brooks would be able to pull it off. But he just does. Apart from that, he doesn't really seem to want to revisit it too much. Yeah. So this is nitpicking, I'm sure, but I'm noticing that very similarly to Attila, most of the songs here don't technically have endings, by which I don't mean they just continue onward into perpetuity, but they all... There's a lot of songs on here that rely on the fade-out, which is a production technique that it's taken many decades of listening to music of various genres for me to decide that it's kind of annoying when it's used too much. Like, seriously.
It's something that should be thrown in every so often. I think it's classy when you do it on, like, 1 or 2 songs per album at most. But, yeah, if you're doing it on every track, that's just, like, come on. Like, figure out how to end a song. Or just, like, how hard is it to just smash on the downbeat?
Just write an ending, even if all it is just a ringing chord.
Yeah. Or some feedback, or da-da-da-da-da-da.
And it's not hard to... It's also not difficult to end a song on a stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess maybe that was a problem for him. Maybe he just wanted to keep going. He didn't want the songs to end.
I haven't really been paying attention to the state of, like, the Nashville-produced country pop, but I don't know if that's maybe a thing, too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with it. I avoid it like the plague, just like their fan base.
Right. So this one, I feel like it's an overall tolerable listen, which is pretty much the nicest thing that I can say for a song on this album, which isn't particularly great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Track number 7, you think?
Yes. Oh, this is
Here's
the one that I was just talking about, yeah.
Yep.
This is track number 7, this one titled It Don't Matter to the Sun.
But it'll be the end of mine. What can I say? What can I do? I'm still in love. So why aren't you?
She walks with angels.
OMG! OMG! You were right.
Ooh, yeah, because we got some Wurlitzer on there. It has a little Black Crowes flavor.
It's a little bit of Round Here by Counting Crows, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is another song that could have just as easily been a country song.
Yes.
And I can't claim to know what goes on in the sick and twisted minds of country western fans, but these songs have been so barely far from the beaten path of Brooks's own stuff. Like, what's the sticking point for them? Is it the lack of an accent? Like, was that the deal breaker that I'm just not picking up on? Are country western fans, like, stealthily the pickiest fans in the world?
Yeah, they're repulsed by any sort of R&B soul-style vocal.
Yeah,
They
this is
wanna
a call. all of the country western fans, come guest on the program and review Love Beach with us.
Yeah, I want to know what their standards are.
I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why they probably are turned off by some of the R&B soul style singing. That unfortunately probably has to do with a little bit of implicit racism. Maybe I'm going a little too far there, but that is like, could be a possibility with like some country music
let's
fans
think about
at that
this.
time period in certain parts of the country.
It's 2020, and the guy who wrote Old Town Road,
Little Nas X.
he was denied mad airtime on country stations until one of those guys, maybe it was even Garth, I forget, there was like one country guy who...
Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah, exactly, and it took his name on the track just to get airplay.
Yeah. Which, like, good on him for
For doing
signal
that.
boosting that.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. So I think there was probably some of that. Like these days they might be a little less, they might be a little more immune to it, but I could totally picture back then they're just in their, God, we were, just finding out now there are these huge bubbles in the parts of the country where they're just very much in their own culture, and I could picture them just constantly just only listening to country music, and anything outside of that bubble just offends them.
Yeah.
But, to us, it doesn't seem like too much different. He just sounds like a little less, country, a little less rednecky when he sings.
Yeah.
So touching back on this song, like these songs, like quiet sort of presumably introspective ballads, like there's so many of them on this record, and I just feel like they don't have any sense of like an emotional arc, because they're all just sort of content to just simmer in this barely present register, and it's not a very dynamic listen.
Yeah, again, tying into what I thought the concept was going to be, which was that we were going through this fictional rock star's life at different points in their life and sort of doing the walk hard thing. I feel like we should also be getting little glimpses into what, is happening during this particular time period too. Like maybe he writes a song that's about his sex addiction, and maybe he writes this other song, that happened, maybe at this point, he, in his career, this thing happened, so he writes about that experience in this particular song. I don't know. Just something, otherwise, this is just on its face like another bland pop album, and he's not actually taking any risks. Even though he is.
I have a few things to say about it.
Yeah.
And that's that a large majority of the songs on this album started out as demos written by that same songwriting team. A lot of them were not written specifically for Chris Gaines. They were just songs that existed that worked into his story.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing was with this one, hold on, I'm looking here. So this song actually appeared on Grey's Anatomy's soundtrack. It was not...
Really?
Yep. It was not the title track or anything, but when a CD came out that was songs featured on Grey's Anatomy, this was on there. It's actually licensed by and owned by one of the songwriters. I forget which one. There's like a few of them, Kirkpatrick and a few of them.
Yeah, Kennedy Kirkpatrick's Sims.
Yeah. So, they own that, and they own the licensing to it, and it ended up on Grey's Anatomy's soundtrack.
Yeah,
Wow.
out of Walmart's jurisdiction.
Right, exactly. We do need to touch on the fact that Walmart... Can we do that now?
Sure.
So, Garth Brooks made, like, a huge corporate deal with Walmart, and so when we were looking to review this album, this is an album that's not on any streaming service available right now.
Right.
It took digging. I think, Patrick, you torrented this album?
Oh no, my friend Christopher Brown. We mentioned it before. He had it.
He had a copy that he was
he
able
had
to
a copy
give
of
to
it that he
us.
was able to upload. To us,
Completely legally, of course.
Yeah.
Completely legally. I believe he purchased it.
Exactly. So, I mean, Garth Brooks's contracts with Walmart rolls deep. And so at first, when I was looking for this album, I was like, holy moly, Garth Brooks must be so ashamed of this album that he wanted to bury it. That was my, thought process. But then, when I was learning about this whole thing, it's because his contract with Walmart, it rolls deep. There's such limited material out there on streaming services because of it.
Very, very shrewd business types.
I think a part of the aversion to streaming services, though, was Garth is one of those guys who really wanted to maintain just total control over any royalties that he might receive, which it's hard to fault him for that, but it does mean it makes it harder for people to get to your music.
Was he kind of one of those big figures on that scene, like Lars Ulrich and Dr. Dre? I can't really
Prince.
remember.
I don't know.
In Prince.
Prince, had to change his name to receive royalties under, certain circumstances. So
that's true.
This will do anything to maintain their own rights to music, but signing a contract with Walmart of all businesses sounds just horrible to me.
Yeah, that's a very weird flex.
It's horrible to me. That's like a personal hell.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't know if you guys remember, but for me, walking into Walmart as a kid, you couldn't get your Eminem CDs there because everything was censored.
Yeah, I remember that. We didn't have it's weird. I don't think we had a Walmart nearby when I was a kid, so I didn't get to experience that. I didn't really experience a Walmart until I was in my 20s.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
We had a Walmart growing up, but I knew that wasn't the place to go for music.
Right, I went to Strawberries in my hometown, but I do remember those trips to Walmart where I was browsing and I was like, wow, I can't even buy Dr. Dre or anything like that.
Can't buy Smash Mouth.
My hometown had a Strawberries too. That eventually became an FYE.
Wow.
I mean, it's not there anymore now, obviously, but yeah.
Now, do you kids remember the Leach Beers? I used to go to the Leach Beers for CDs.
Oh. See?
Yeah, that's it.
So before we move on to the next track, when I told my girlfriend Seuss that I was doing this record, she posited to me when I was writing my notes for this episode that maybe this was just what Garth Brooks had wanted to be doing from the start, and that he just kind of fell into country music near the beginning. And after this album was rejected by fans, he had to just kind of sheepishly go back to pop country. I don't know how true that is, but it does add a weird second layer to it to just imagine Garth Brooks just arrives as Chris Gaines and goes, "This is me! This is the real me! This has always been the real me! We don't like it!" Okay.
I'm actually really into that idea. Now that you bring it
Interesting
up.
alternate
Gene
history to
Belcher.
think about.
This is me now.
Yeah,
Gene
yeah,
Belcher.
it's like Gene Belcher, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Eugene Merman, FYI.
Oh, hell
Oh.
yeah.
Bless you, my sweet summertime boy.
This episode is now dedicated to Eugene Merman.
Awesome.
Hashtag blessed.
Should we move on to track number 8 now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
This one.
Track
It's a
number
song.
8. This one.
Oof,
Track
oof.
number 8. This one titled Right Now.
Maybe it's a high schools, maybe it's a teachers, tattoos, pipe bombs underneath the bleachers. Maybe it's the music, maybe it's the crack, maybe it's the Bible, or could it be the lack?
Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Oh, man. The nadir.
We have reached
If ever you
the
needed
first
to
cringe
answer the
moment.
question of what some of the all-time worst elements to have been part of a prominent part of the popular alternative music scene in a post-Nirvana 90s were, you needn't look any further than track number 8 of Chris Gaines' greatest hits. Just imagine about almost every bad idea that could have potentially made its way into an imminently forgettable late 90s post-grunge act, because it's all here. Superfluous electronics? Got it. Needless quiet verse, loud chorus dynamics? Got it. White guy rapping? Fucking got it. All that we're missing at this point? Fieldy.
I mean, all we're missing is, I don't know, Violence and Fire, and we got Woodstock 99 in a can.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
All I was going to say was the verses. Can we talk about how the verses are done in the style of Pepper by Butthole Surfers?
That's
I would not have
interesting.
made that connection because there's actually a much more shameless connection too.
What is that?
Do you know the song "If It Were Up to Me" by Cheryl Wheeler?
No.
It was like this folk song that was I think it was only really popular in like indie circles, but it came out like before this song, and it very nakedly rips off like the actual legit protest folk song. Here's a clip.
Maybe it's the movies, maybe it's the books, maybe it's the bullets, maybe it's the real crooks, maybe it's the drugs, maybe it's the parents, maybe it's the colors everybody's wearing, maybe it's the president, maybe it's the last one, maybe it's the one before that, what he done, maybe it's the high schools, maybe it's the teachers, maybe it's the tattooed children.
Okay, that's...
I mean, come on. It's
Yeah.
shameless.
The same goddamn song. Oh, is that the Cheryl Wheeler
Yeah.
person? Oh, that's what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Holy
the same
moly.
Damn song.
That's
That's right.
I feel like
mashup.
Butthole Surfers is on a secondary level.
But yeah, since you mentioned that, I can hear Pepper too now.
You can, though.
Well, that's like that
I don't
disaffected
mind. Yeah,
voice
and
that
we
he's
were
doing.
all
It's-
in love with Diane, and we were doing it in Vegas or whatever. Yeah. And even the effects, some of their guitar effects and shit.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit of that tremolo shit, but I mean, like Gibby Haynes is doing like a purposefully disaffected voice. I think Garth Brooks or Chris Gaines, I'm sorry, sounds bored here, and he essentially, speaking of being prescient, we got a mashup here, which I didn't know was a mashup until you clued me into the Cheryl Wheeler track, which like I'm over those. I don't know.
Well, like, the difference here is that Wheeler has a long history of writing protest songs, so she knows how to get her point across in a clear and concise manner while also being subtle. Brooks has no such experience, clearly, so he's just relying on, like, beating you over the head with just the vague reminder of this is a protest song by just haphazardly tacking Get Together by the Youngbloods to the chorus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he didn't do anything. I don't know. There's something lame about like just taking two other protest songs and mashing them together instead of like trying to like do your own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's all in the service of
Chris Gaines.
Like, If It Were
Satan?
Up to Me was very clearly an anti-gun song. It was inspired by the events of Columbine, and right now is a reaction to a protest song.
Yeah.
What is this supposed to be a reaction to anyway? Like what
It's
is it
funny because, like,
for?
I was watching the VH1 special last night, and it made
Yes.
a very big sort of, like, deal of, like, this was the first time Chris Gaines ever wrote a protest song. Except he didn't. It's a mashup of two songs.
Yeah, there's no writing involved here.
And he's not protesting anything. Unless he's just being like, come on, guys, be cool. Because that's like, the only sort of message that I can fathom being gotten across. He's got the fuzz filter on his vocals, just like Gavin Rossdale would do. So you know he's taking it to the edge.
he's taking it to the buzz bin.
Oh boy, that's a buzz ballad for sure.
Oh yeah, that is I don't know,
A buzz ballad.
an AIM window that's black with green text. I don't know. Sounds like something I'd do.
Boy. Not nearly enough people on the planning committee for this record were fired.
That's the best.
No.
No, that's the best like representation of this album anyone said so far.
What black an AIM
No,
AIM
like
message screen
about
with the
how
black
not
background
enough
and
people
green
were
text.
fired.
Oh, that too. No, that is an excellent
Oh boy.
thing to say.
Do we want to keep dunking on this terrible rap rock song or move on?
Do I? Oh wait, no,
All right.
no. Let's move on.
That's what I was asking. Do you? All right, here's track number 9. This one titled Main Street.
My dreams, I've seen things that only seem to happen on the silver screen. When it's over, there's no walking now, 'cause out there all they talk about.
this is the one with Trisha Yearwood on it. Gets a co-writing credit.
Avenue Heartache.
Yep, there we go. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yep.
Yeah, this has some serious Wallflowers vibes to it for sure. Did Trisha Yearwood say, I liked this album. I really liked Main Street in particular. Wink, wink. Like,
I kind of got vibes of like just shittier American dirtbag Oasis a little bit too.
Dirtbag
Yeah.
Oasis is perfect. That's a perfect description of this, but I will say that, again, like I know I said it earlier, but this is her favorite album of his.
Because that's the one that she has the writing credit on, I'm
True.
sure.
True.
True.
Very true.
But also Patrick makes a great point. Like, ripping
I do?
Wallflowers. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I did, yes. Yeah, definitely rips off the Wallflowers there. Yeah, it's funny that we both thought of this band, but on two different tracks.
Two different tracks. So here they were taking notes on one headlight. So clearly, I don't even know when Bringing Down the Horse came out, but I do remember having it as a child, like having that CD. And
Yeah. It was 96, I think.
yeah. I got it one Christmas, and holy moly, do they rip that whole album off?
Oh, for sure.
That's funny. Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit more about the VH1 special, and like maybe we can talk about the SNL thing during this time too, because like having been clued into that and finally watching it, there's just so much more to unpack, like in connection to this, like especially so many years later, because like anyone who watched the special for the first time back in the late 90s had to have been absolutely befuddled. But having watched it now and hearing all these exhortations from people about what a legend Chris Gaines was and what a sales juggernaut he was and what a misunderstood genius he was is ridiculous. Like, there's something really extra special about seeing Brooks/Gaines like country pop that's really not fooling anybody coming from a sad-faced guy in his mid-30s wearing guyliner. Not to mention just how sex-crazed and lascivious Gaines supposedly was when all the songs on this record are pretty chaste.
Yes. I mean, they were all written by a Christian rock guy, yeah.
Yeah.
The, anti-horny. Very anti-horny.
I like that. Anti-horny.
Yeah, that's the organization he's a part of. Anti-horns.
AH.
Oh, boy.
Anti-whore. No.
And yeah, like we alluded to earlier, there is a very, very memorable SNL episode that he was a part of, too. Like,
Oh, yeah?
I don't think I ever saw the full episode, but I definitely remember seeing, like, a couple of, like, sketches on, like, best ofs a couple of times. Like, it actually has one of my favorite SNL sketches on it, like, of all time.
Oh, which one?
It's this sketch where Garth Brooks is playing like this down-on-his-luck musician, and he basically just sort of half-heartedly goes, I'd sell my soul to the devil for a hit song. Will Ferrell appears as the devil, takes his soul, and then only has just shitty novelty songs to offer him.
Oh, yeah. I think I vaguely remember that.
Wait, that's like real life for him, though.
I suppose it is.
What about that is not true for Garth Brooks?
But it's funny because, like, Will Ferrell introduces it in, like, this dark satanic voice being like, behold, a song to bring cities to their knees. Gary's got a pair of slacks that's really, really nice, and they're a little bit tight in the waist.
That's pretty great.
That is
like,
great.
the sticking
That
point
was
for
a
that
great
episode
season.
is that, like, Garth Brooks appeared on the show as himself in the sketches. He performed the musical performances as Chris Gaines.
Right.
As if it was a different person. Yeah.
Yes.
And you saw,
Chris Gaines.
you saw, like, Tracy Morgan's cringeworthy little sketch with him.
The little interlude
did
where he's
not.
just like, I want to see Chris Gaines.
Yeah, and so, like, for Tracy, like, I laughed, I giggled along, but at the same time nowadays it doesn't necessarily hold up.
Nah, not really. Like, it's ostensibly trying to be like this wink and a nod. It's like, oh, we're in on the joke. But everyone was already in on the joke because it was advertised as Garth Brooks Presents the life of Chris Gaines or something like that.
Yeah, it was no. What entities were supposed to know that this was a separate person, and like which entities were supposed to know that they were the same person?
Oh boy,
is that a tough question to ask?
I think so.
Good, because it's nonsense.
It is nonsense.
Yeah.
But a lot of this is, isn't it?
Should we move on to the next the next track?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna play these ones back to back because I'll be honest, like they're interchangeable with like other earlier album tracks. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna play these two back to back. Here's track number 10, titled "White Flag." And track number 11, titled "Digging for Gold."
Love Kenny Loggins.
OMG, yes.
I mean, you know what I mean, though, right? We've already talked about these songs, basically.
Pretty much. That Digging for Gold had, like, that character was definitely a little peppier.
A little bit, yeah.
That was the one special thing about that one. But, yeah, you're right. We're kind of... We've already dunked on these two assholes, Kennedy Kirkpatrick.
Yeah, basically. Like, they follow a lot of the same kind of formulaic structures, and they really don't aspire to be much more than just kind of fine and conventional. We've already talked about these ones.
For me, I had nothing to say on number 10, White Flag, but for Digging for Gold, my only notes were, doesn't one pan or mine for gold and not dig?
That is true.
Those were my notes on that.
It's a phrase, but you're right. It's a problematic idiom in that way. You don't really actually dig.
I mean, unless they're talking about like digging for pirate gold or something, because those are always buried.
Yeah, you have to dig under the dirt to get the chest full of gold.
But you're digging underwater for those. Am I wrong? No, maybe not. X marks the spot.
Right.
Oh yeah. You get the X marking the spot on land. Yeah, it's hard to markate water. I've noticed. Every time I try to use a Sharpie on my goldfish. Okay, let's continue.
No, but you're right about the Kenny Loggins reference. That totally is Danger Zone.
We're this far into the album, and I feel like I'm starting to notice a pattern of, like, it's very backloaded in that all of the songs that are even remotely close to being, like, rocky songs are all near the end of the album.
Yeah, so it's like they put the pop tracks first because maybe they were trying. Yeah,
I'm sure that makes sense from like a commercial standpoint, but not if you're trying to paint Chris Gaines as like some kind of, misunderstood rock genius.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there was any sort of dispute over the track sequence. They don't really give you a lot of info on the Wikipedia page, and I mean, I'm not going to go further than that. That's Lil's job.
And like that kind of, that brings me to another theory I have about like this song. Like, I have a theory about why all these songs sound so homogeneous and toothless.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like it's entirely on the fact that Garth Brooks chose all the wrong people to collaborate with on this project.
No kidding.
Like, if the idea behind Chris Gaines and the Lamb was that the character was some sort of, tortured rock god, it stands to reason that he should have left the confines of his country pop underpinnings behind to seek out some more appropriate songwriters to collaborate with. Like, if you want that image, call up, go get Mike Patton's number or Noel Gallagher or David Grohl or something like that. But Brooks didn't do that. All the tracks on this record all have writing credits for people he's already had a long history of working with that are thoroughly entrenched in the clean-cut, pristine Nashville music scene, which is very far removed from rock music.
Yeah, seriously. I couldn't agree more, yeah.
Like, I don't want to besmirch the likes of Gordon Kennedy, Trisha Yearwood, Wayne Kirkpatrick and company. They're just, doing what they're doing. But it's very clear that they're, like, the wrong people for the job.
Yeah, or they're just safe. They were very safe picks for him, I guess.
And
Yeah.
also, I understand that Garth Brooks is only a singer, but for me, as an outsider, looking at a singer who wants to branch out creatively, to not write a single note of the album, to me is like, dude, like, you're doing this
Yeah.
too.
It's just,
feel like-
the concept just, it was kind of spoiled to, from the start, from the fact that he wasn't even putting any of his own music or words into it.
I don't think Garth Brooks was credited with any songwriting on this album at all.
No.
No, I don't think so.
And it's like, if you're going to try to branch out and do something new and try to find your own voice musically, put your voice out there. Don't hire somebody else to put your voice out there.
Yeah, I think it really speaks to how insular the country music scene really is, I guess. And especially at the time, like you were talking about, Kat, we were pretty much, completely oblivious to it at the time because, we were focused on other stations. And I feel like the rock and pop realms, played a lot easier than country ever did. And yeah, I think there was a lot of just him, he had this big concept, but he didn't actually take any risks.
He didn't.
To follow
No
up on
risks. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's billed as like this big passion project, but all the songs on here are just passionless.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And I mean, anyone could have predicted that with the personnel involved.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to track number 12. This one is titled Maybe.
Maybe I could stand alone. Maybe I'm strong as stone. Even though the bird has flown.
Cat giving a humongous thumbs down to this song.
Oh, yeah, the forced perspective made it on the video made it great because it looked like the thumb was like twice her size.
Good. That was
Big
the
ass
effect
thumb.
I wanted. So, like, my whole thing was, oh, hi, Mellotron. Sound like the Beatles, like Abbey Road. And it's not good.
Yeah,
It does kind of have very vague kind of, once again, Oasis-y sort of, I'm trying way too hard to be the Beatles sort of.
So the
comparisons.
writing is definitely trying to do a like post Beatles progressive pop type of structure, which I actually kind of liked, but I could totally see where it feels really put on and everything. Yeah, and who was the co-writer on this one? Phil Madeira. So I don't know.
This is the only one with Phil Madeira as the co-writer on it.
And he's another Nashville guy.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
As I understand it, he's also penned songs for non-Nashville artists like Bruce Hornsby, Keb Mo, and the Civil Wars. So he's at least, experienced something beyond that scene.
All kind of country adjacent artists. Well, no, Hornsby.
Is Bruce Hornsby country adjacent?
I think he had
and
some...
Keb Mo's a little more blues.
He's a little more blues, I guess. But, Hornsby, I think, had some, probably country rock past, but that was, a lot of those 70s, 80s.
Okay, never mind
artists. Then. But what was I going to say about this one? So this was the first song that actually sounded like it was trying to be something beyond a R&B track or just another bland late 90s pop rock exercise.
It feels like a song that had some real effort put into the arrangements and writing of that sort of stuff.
I don't want to say it was say it was good per se.
Yeah, it's still just kind of pretty decent for me.
But it's the first one where I noticed that there was actually some sort of effort put towards to make it sound like there was a concept, I guess. I don't want to say effort though, because I don't want to give it that much credit.
I will say I feel like it does
really
the
took
whole.
that
I will
thumb
say
to
I feel
heart.
like it does the whole torchy rock ballad thing better than some other tracks on here, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, I was kind of into it for that like stupid Beatlesy aspect of it. His voice definitely gets a little cloying on top of it, and you do want something that's like a little more understated with something like this. But yeah, I didn't hate this one as much as Kat did. It gets a sideways thumb.
Okay, that's fair. For me, it's like, as a rock musician, no one can record an album nowadays without like referencing the Beatles in some way in some conversation, even if it's like a side conversation. So I get that, but at the same time, they didn't pull off. I don't feel like they pulled off what they were going for.
As George Harrison said, it's been done.
Fair.
So, like, in doing my research for this, I read a lot of retrospectives. One of the best ones, like, there's a Stereo Gum article that's like a big sort of very far-reaching retrospective on this. It's mostly just sort of going through like the whole history of all the troubled sort of stuff around it. And it brings up a very interesting point that I wouldn't have thought of. That is just like, how about I just read the whole excerpt that I thought was really cool?
Yeah.
Okay. It posits, perhaps the real reason for Chris Gaines' failure is that Brooks went too far and not far enough. He developed all the details, ridiculous as they were, but from the very beginning it was sold as a Garth Brooks project. The words viral and marketing hadn't even been conjoined at that point in the digital era, but 1999 was proving to be a year for such elusiveness. Just months before the release of In the Life, a small movie starring nobody in particular crept into theaters, touted not as a fictional horror movie, but as the edited tapes of three very real people who had set off in search of an American legend. The Blair Witch Project. Was it real? Was it a fiction? No one really knows for sure. It wasn't just clever marketing, but a strategy that played into the film's subject matter and enlarged its world. Like, the real reason Blair Witch worked so well was because it was fun to let ourselves pretend to be fooled by the marketing campaign, which heightened the scares. By presenting Chris Gaines as a Garth Brooks character, Brooks didn't let the listeners make that decision or enjoy the confusion of bent reality. He simply told everybody to accept it. That strategy might have been an act of creative cowardice or celebrity hubris, prioritizing sales over concept. Or it might have just been a means of conceiving reality that was suddenly and irreparably made obsolete by the internet. In a world haunted by the Blair Witch, Chris Gaines was an anachronism before he even sang a note.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people just don't want to be forced to fucking suspend their disbelief.
I never would have made the connection between Garth Brooks and the Blair Witch Project, but that's some very interesting stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's a very interesting comparison.
For me, that's high praise. Too high praise.
Oh, okay.
Well, like, the Blair Witch got it right, but you can't really take that same concept to... you could do it for music, but you need to try a little harder than Mr. Brooks did, I guess is what maybe this article was getting at.
Yeah, Chris Gaines should have just ended with a prolonged shot of Garth Brooks standing in a corner just staring off into space. Clearly.
Big ideas. I got big ideas.
Yep.
That's what he was saying, staring
should we move on to the last track?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Let's do this.
Oh, no. Track number 13, My Love Tells Me So. Certainly mood whiplash.
Right?
Maybe felt
Toto
like an
period,
end,
right?
And now we're just jumping over like this.
Incredible, fucking ballsy move there, Mr. Brooks.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh my goodness!
I love this one. This is my absolute favorite track on the album.
Oh, that's incredibly exciting.
It is. It's absolutely different, it's unique, and it's more honest than the entire album has been.
I liked this song too.
It's Chicago.
It is Chicago.
It is very Chicago. It kind of reminded me a bit of like something that would be like Kurt Smith from Tears for Fears' solo project, that like super adult contemporary thing that he put out.
Oh yeah,
I'm not
A little
familiar.
bit like that. And it actually like kind of, maybe because these albums are very much on my mind recently, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of like later era XTC too, like just because XTC, just because of the feel of it and like this sort of adult contemporary meets Beatles feel to it, because there was a little bit of that that sort of jaunty Beatlesy vibe to it, at least in like the beginning parts. But then as soon as you get to the choruses, those are very Toto. But I fucking love Toto. I don't give a shit. I'm a yacht rock guy. Like,
fair enough.
Yacht rock fetishist, I should say. That keeps me on the outside. I don't actually like it unironically or anything.
It's such a departure from the rest of the album, and that's what I really appreciate. And I think this is the pop pulp that the songwriters are good at. You know,
Yeah.
this is brilliant, and it's, you know, it's so different.
Yeah, there are some fun changes, and I think there's I don't know if this was the one. There's one track on here that had a nasty bass line. I can't remember which one it was. And who plays bass on this album? James Hutchinson.
Hutch, yeah.
Good old Hutch. I don't know. Oh, he's from Lynn, Massachusetts. Look at that. Grew up in Cambridge and Somerville. Played with Bonnie Raitt. Yeah.
So this only just occurred to me, like, as we mentioned, Garth Brooks has no writing credits on this album. He did not sing lead on this song. The lead is instead sung by Brooks guitarist Gordon Kennedy, which makes me wonder if Garth had anything to do with this song at all.
Like, what? What would he have done?
I'm not surprised.
Wear a hat?
I mean, the reason for that, I assume, actually goes into like the canonical story of this album, because this is supposed to be the big single from Crush, the band that Chris Gaines in the history thing got his start in, and they had a different lead singer. Chris Gaines wasn't the lead singer; he was like the guitarist or something.
Levy.
Like, that's actually kind of clever, and I actually would appreciate that, like, in this concept. So that makes sense.
I mean, it's
that
clever,
actually
but
took you into the story.
It's clever, but there's a part that I just can't really get over, because after a while, as I mentioned, my critiques turned into critiques of the concept as opposed to the music itself. But, like, I just can't get over some of this stuff. Like, and in the case of My Love Tells Me So, like, just really thinking about it, this was a song ostensibly released in 1989 by what's pitched as an incredibly unconventional and iconoclastic band. And as we said, it sounds like yacht pop. Like, were pop groups even making that kind of music by 1985, much less having wild commercial success with it?
I'm not sure when Wham formed. But
it was like mid-80s, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like 80s pop to me, just because of the songwriting felt a little dated, and like the production was a little icier, I guess. So this was supposed to be like a late 80s pop hit. That was the idea behind the production of it too. That's kind of interesting, because it actually
like,
is
in the
kind of works out.
In the history, it was supposed to be like the track that made Crush the supposed new it people of rock music.
Oh,
but like,
yeah, I don't know about
fucking
that.
The Replacements and REM had already arrived on the scene years prior, and like this fucking song right here is, you know, the thing that's supposed to wake up the sleeping rock and roll masses in this fucking alternate Earth that we're going with here.
It's the new Daydream Nation for sure.
So to just close out my thoughts on Maybe, as I mentioned, this just comes out of nowhere completely, and I feel like really ties into the whole sort of idea that this thing was sequenced just really, really weirdly.
Yeah, that's like I said, I wonder if there is an alternate track listing, track sequence that's out there in the ether that might have made a bit more sense. Not that any of this really makes much sense or fucking matters.
One that actually sounds like a rock album?
Yeah, I mean, this My Love Tells Me So. Yeah, I mean, this track probably would have been better. I don't even know where it would belong. It's so different. I mean, it almost kind of belongs at the end because it feels like a B-side or like a bonus track or something.
Most of these songs were demos and B-sides that the guys had, that, you know, their songwriting team, like, had laying around.
Yeah, it was in Satan's goodie bag of novelty songs.
Yeah, exactly. Novelty songs is a perfect way of putting it.
The way I remember it.
That's the way
it's a Tommy Sims song.
I remember it.
Well, I mean, if this is supposed to be such a high concept sort of thing, then it stands to reason that it should have its own songs. Don't just, like, rely on, you know, your leftovers for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that is a problem. Absolutely.
Should we get into our final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess it's about that time.
All right. Pat, do you consider this a worst of all time album?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would have defiantly said no at the beginning of this podcast, and I think I'm still there. It was listenable. I even liked a couple of the tracks. I liked it better than I thought I would, which is kind of interesting. My issues with it, where I think it's a failure, which, as I remember, is kind of the point of this show. We review controversial albums, so I think it's controversial, and it failed in its concept in numerous ways that we've kind of already discussed all over the course of this album. You know, he should have put more of himself into it. I think there should have been more care taken into, like, the into just, like, crafting a storyline and a concept. I felt like this was rushed. I don't know if the plan was to maybe... No, because this was the greatest hits. This should have been the thing that... This should have had all the ideas that he wanted for the concept. I think he didn't take enough risks. It's too insular. It's too Nashville. He should have branched out a bit and worked with some different people. You know, fucking, like, Paul Simon went and, you know, worked with musicians from, like, a completely other side of the globe for, you know, for all his albums. Yeah, I can certainly do that. And, you know, and that was, you know, a way to sort of pay homage and respect to musicians that are way out of your circle. And that was a very respectful way to do it. You know, there's been plenty of other groups that have not done that and have been, like, really appropriative in, you know, taking on those different genres. This is like a country artist taking on another fucking white person genre, and he couldn't even do that. Like, he couldn't,
great point.
He couldn't even step out of his fucking country music bubble to go work with, you know, like Butch Vig or, like, I don't know, like David Bowie maybe. Or fucking David Byrne. I don't know.
I mean, there were so
Kid
many.
Rock, he wasn't around yet. Or no, this was the year. He could have worked with Kid Rock. He could have worked with Vanilla Ice was back, I think, right? Like, for fuck's sake. Like, I don't know, like, work with a halfway country guy like, I don't know, like Don
Townes
Henley.
Van Zandt was for
Phil
sale.
Collins, for fuck's sake. I don't know. Yeah, Eric Clapton. I don't know. Like, you didn't even try, bro. I don't know. Now, it's good, but I have issues. I have issues.
All right. Same question for you, Kat. Do you think this is a worst of all time record?
For me, listening, yes. Yes, because there was so much unremarkability in this album. Like going back to that Rugrats reference of corrugated bran puff cereal. This is the album of corrugated bran puff cereal. I'm sorry, but it is. There's so much filler crap in there. You know, I would never listen to this album for pleasure. Ever.
Yeah, that's fair. I have no intention of going back.
I don't think any of us do, but...
Yeah.
It's a one and done.
As for me, I shouldn't call this a worst of all time record because the simple truth is that the music on here just isn't terrible enough to merit that kind of widespread lambasting, except for maybe, like, a couple of songs. And, like, even retrospective reviews don't consider it that bad so many years later. Like, its infamy is just kind of inherently tied to the mess of a marketing campaign it was attached to. But, like, I've said over the course of a bunch of different episodes that, like, if there's one thing that I hate more than a bad album, it's a boring album. And this is a boring album that doesn't extend beyond anything greater than just conventional and competent. And it just has an air that it represents something so much more. Like, Garth Brooks gets praised a lot for his experimentation in the realm of pop country music. And he just fell so short when the opportunity to expand beyond the confines of his own genre was presented to him. I mean, clearly some thought was put into matters of, like, image and backstory and stuff, but he could have gotten leverage with this concept or at least come up with something genuinely interesting if all he'd done was pick different collaborators. Or maybe this should have just been a Garth Brooks release on its own. Like, for how many of these songs sound like they could have been translated through his lens? Maybe that would have been less embarrassing to his fan base if he'd just dispensed with the whole fictional rock star conceit and just kept it separate.
Well, like, you really wonder with this whole concept, like, what work did he actually put into this?
I wonder that too.
He was clearly the face.
Do? Well, he's the face, and he's, on lead vocals and acoustic guitar. Like, what else did he do? Like,
he didn't write it.
He didn't have any, like, production credits. He has no, like, writing credits anywhere here. Like, it's just someone with a bunch of money paying for an album. Oh, that sounds like our last episode, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Like at least with the two of you, you're both very, like, talented in the songwriting, like, field. Imagine just wanting to explore a new genre, but hiring people to do all the work for you.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm way too much. Yeah, It must be nice to have that kind of money. It must be nice to not be a fucking complete control freak like me and let someone else into your fucking smell cave.
As it is, however, I would say this album is not worst of all time material necessarily, but it's just hovering over the line for just how impressively unimpressive it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and the concept is a big failure, and I think that's a bit hard to ignore. It certainly weighs down my enjoyment of the album.
One thing for me to say is, like, and I've been thinking about this, like, as long as I've been listening to this album, is he's a perfect example of everything I hate about the music industry today, is that he's completely bland. He made probably billions of dollars. Just showing up. You know what I mean? The pressures of a body image don't apply to him. The pressures of quality songwriting somehow don't ever apply to him. No, none of the standards that are put on anyone else has been applied to him. I don't know.
No. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, and there are probably people more talented than him that have to work twice as hard to get recognized or
present company included. Like, y'all work so hard.
If I wanted to be, like, really mean, then, like, I guess I could just say that, like, the bar for that whole Nashville music scene is just that much lower. But no, like, I'm sure a lot of work gets put into that sort of stuff too. Just not from the faces quite so much.
Yeah, no, there's some. No, yeah, those working musicians, I got a lot of respect for them. They're out there every fucking day working for fucking peanuts.
Right. What would you say is the best or least bad track on the album, Pat?
And I actually am having a tough time choosing. There were like maybe 4 tracks that I kind of liked equally. I'm going to go with the last track. I liked it.
My Love Tells Me So?
My Love Tells Me So. But if I'm going to pick one that Garth Brooks actually sang on, I would probably go with Way of the Girl. That was a slapper.
Same question to you, Kat.
Okay, so my favorite track was definitely My Love Tells Me So. And my least favorite was,
I was going to ask that next. What did you say your worst track was?
Unsigned Letter. I hated that one.
Oh.
It was
that
too
was my
cliche.
favorite track.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Kat hates Unsigned Letter. What was your worst track, Pat?
Ooh. I'm going to go with Right Now. Yeah. It was going to be Drifting
fair.
Away. It was going to be Drifting Away because that was probably the most boring one to me. But yeah, right now is a definite bruh moment. That is super cringy. I hated it.
I am also going to say Right Now is the worst track for all the reasons you just said. Huge thumbs down.
Not tomorrow. Right now.
We finally made it, though. We made it through this
Yeah.
album. We made it through this season.
Wow.
Woo!
Season 3 in the
This was our
bank.
season finale.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a part of it, Kat.
I'm enjoying it so much. Thank you both so much for having me.
Oh, no, seriously.
We've been meaning
pleasure's
to have
all
you
here.
back for a while now.
I'm always happy to do this.
Have you got anything you want to plug while we're here?
I really don't have much. My bands have been practicing during quarantine, but my next gig is in September.
Wow.
Wow.
Really.
Yeah, hopefully, right?
You know, so hey, Knockups and OTP, those are my bands. I love
Yep.
y'all. But
Go check them out. They're great.
yay! So are Only Humans and Smell and Bears for Years and however many other projects y'all are in.
That about covers it these days. I'm trying to keep it slimmer.
What is it?
I was saying I try to keep my list slimmer these days. There was a time where I had like 5 different things going on. I'm trying to keep it narrow.
Have you got anything you want to plug, Pat?
Yeah, check out Must Watch Movies, my other podcast that I do about movies, which is hilarious because I am a terrible movie watcher and have an attention span of about 11 minutes. So it's a good time. That's a nice fun show. I'm doing Jaws this month with Nathaniel Nemitz, who you may remember from the Shags episode.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the concept of the show is that I've never seen a certain like big movie before because I'm stupid and haven't seen enough movies in my life, and it was impossible to find another person who has never seen Jaws. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a trip. So it's me watching like a well-known popular movie for the first time, like I did Citizen Kane, and then I'm going to do Jaws next month. So yeah, that's a good time. And I don't know, probably got some music stuff coming up, but I don't, so I won't say anything.
Cool.
I'm gonna plug. Go check out the other Zero Science podcasts, including Must Watch Movies. Check out my other podcast I'm doing with our good friend Scott Kurland called Hell is a Musical, where he's a big fan of musicals and movie musicals, and I am not. And he basically spends every episode trying to get me into movie musicals, and it doesn't always work.
The Newsies.
We're gonna do that at some point, actually. Our last episode was on Grease, and we both hated it.
Kill me. Kill me.
Oh, no. You could check that out. Go check out the other Zero Science podcasts. And in about a month, I'm going to have a new Fatigue full length out for the first time. So definitely check that out.
Nice. I think you know what? Discography Deep Dive should be starting up again around September.
Oh, yeah. You're hosting the next season, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'll be hosting the next season of that. It's going to be on Soundgarden. Very exciting. They were one of my favorite bands from when I was a kid. So, yeah, get ready for me to talk about a classic grunge band for, however many episodes. What did you do, 7?
I did 6 episodes.
6 episodes, yeah.
Last season, I did an arc on Sparks. The first season, our friend Christopher Brown did an episode on Radiohead. And, yeah, there's going to be more of those. I think we were talking about our friend Austin doing one. Yeah. I think Scott wanted to do one, and Abram.
Yep. Should be a good time. And, yeah, good stuff.
And defo check those out. Anyway, our theme song is Sunny Day by the band Froggy and the Friendship. Check them out at froggyandthefriendship.bandcamp.com. If you got an album you want to suggest for us to review or just want to leave us some feedback or a comment, email us at jukeboxzerospodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/jukeboxzerospodcast or on Twitter at twitter.com/jukeboxzeros. You can find us, rate us, review us, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. or check out our archives on the Zero Science main page. Jukebox Zeros is a production of the Zero Science Network. For more great podcasts, go to zero-science.com. That does it for our 4th season. We're going to take a break for the whole of August, but we'll be back in September with new episodes real soon. And that about does it for this episode of Jukebox Zeros. I'm Lels.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Kat.
Oh, no! It happened again!